If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew.
This is Joe.
And this time we're going to go over Christmas in July. If you heard us at the end of our last episode, this is a yearly tradition that we've gone for 8 years now this year, where we set a budget, we pick a book without telling the other what we're getting, and then we go ahead and we do a blind swap, typically on the 4th of July. We're a little bit early this year, but like I said before, Christmas in July is more of like a state of mind rather than a firm date. And then after we go over our festivities for this year and our past years, we're going to go over some of our best and worst timed investments in the comic book market, and we'll kind of dig a little deeper as to why we chose what we chose. With that being said, we'll probably start off with, year one. We'll kind of discuss what books we got then. Obviously, years 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Yeah, so Joe, do you want to tee us up?
It all started in the year 2015. That was when we were back in college. Didn't have a lot of play money, but we both liked comic books. So year one, we decided to do a comic book swap in July. That year, I got a Marvel Premiere issue 47, first app and origin of Scott Lang as Ant-Man, also the first app of Cassie Lang. But he also threw in a Marvel Premiere issue 3, which is a cool Doctor Strange cover. I don't know if it is or isn't, so I could just be making stuff up, but I think it's the first Doctor Strange in title. And so it's a pretty early Doctor Strange issue, a classic cover, and I like that they're both Marvel Premiere books. So I figured that it'd be kind of cool to talk about what we've gotten over the years, just to kind of show our gratitude and appreciation for the amount of time and effort we've been doing this. So that's what I got year one.
Well, you were so kind as to get me a Batman 189, the first Silver Age appearance of the Scarecrow. And for those listening, that sounds like kind of a bit of disparity in value, especially considering how sharp the Scarecrow you got me was. From that point on, I kind of realized that we have to step our game up. But heading into year 2, I didn't exactly step my game up quite yet, but we're working towards it. So year 2, I'll lead off with what I got this time around, just so it shows you the drop off in exchange here. So Joe was so kind as to get me a Fantastic Four issue 50, the first Wyatt Wingfoot, the end of the Galactus trilogy, and then also was so kind as to throw in a Fantastic Four issue 53, the second appearance and origin of the Black Panther, T'Challa, and the first appearance of Ulysses Claw, otherwise known as Claw. And Joe, what did I get you?
So before I tell everybody what you got me, I do want to say I was so sick about giving you that Batman issue that I finally got one for myself. I always try to give gifts that I don't already have myself, but that I want. And so selfishly, it was a book I did not want to part with, but I finally got one for my own collection. But year 2, Berger knows I love Jonah Hex. It's something that my brother Juan instilled in me. He's a big Jonah Hex fan. And so to kick it off year 2, I got an All-Star Western issue 11. So that's the second appearance of Jonah Hex, but it's his first cover appearance. And fun fact, it's also the second appearance and first cover appearance of his horse General. So
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, General and Jonah Hex, pretty cool issue. Year 3, which would be 2018, Berger really stepped it up. I remember the exchange when I was going to Eastern. We were still in college. He got me a Blue Beetle issue 1. That sounds crazy because that's been going on forever, but I think it's like volume 5. Regardless, it's the first appearance of The Question, which is a sweet Charlton book, which was very unique to my collection, but also because I'm such a Watchmen fan, it was kind of cool to get Rorschach's version of the character. So that's what I got year 3. How about yourself, Burger?
So year 3, there's a little bit of a theme here. So going back a couple years, I had started collecting the Fantastic Four pretty heavily. Henceforth, that's why Joe, year 2, got me 2 of those bangers to round out my collection. And he kept up that energy year 3. So he got me Fantastic Four issue 36, the first appearance of the Frightful Four, and Medusa, the wife of Black Bolt and one of the major Inhuman characters. So, I mean, that was really sick, especially because at the time I was looking for one, and that's when prices were actually pretty hot on those books. I remember back when issue 45 and 46 were off the charts, I mean, compared to now. And he actually found a really, really clean copy for well within our budget. And, it's a banger, and it's still one of the nicest Fantastic Four books in my box today. So I really appreciated that one. I appreciate all of them a lot, but that one really hit different too, just because of how sharp it was. And back then I was pretty much a low grade guy based on my budget, and to have a nice crispy Silver Age book was sweet. But heading into year 4, Joe got me a Jimmy Olsen, or a Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen 134, the first cameo appearance of Darkseid. So I was pretty late in the game. I didn't have any Darkseid books, and Joe got the main one for me. It's a sharp copy. Darkseid's one of our favorite villains. What's cooler? I mean, Joe already had his, so I was a little late to the party, and he made sure to, make sure that I was caught up. So what did I get you, Joe?
So year 4, you got me a slabbed Hawkman issue 1, first titled series. I know that last book that you mentioned kind of contradicted me not giving books in my own collection, because I did have one at that point, but that's the only book that I've ever given that I had one in my own collection. But Burger's been very thoughtful as far as like the gifts he's given, as far as like me being a Watchmen fan or me being a Jonah Hex fan. So one of my first big early keys was a first Silver Age Hawkman, first Silver Age Hawkgirl, and so that kind of fit the vibe of my DC box at the time. So having an issue 1, his first solo series, that was pretty big at the time.
And don't forget the Pa Kent action figure.
Oh, how could anybody forget? I have it in my room still.
What would Pa do?
What would Pa do? And those books were actually done on an affordable budget. So for anybody looking to get into Comic Book July, we did that swap like with a $100 budget, and we both got big books. So it's doable.
Yeah, for sure. Year 5.
Year 5. That might have been our biggest swap ever.
It has been.
Reason being, we were at a Comic-Con, so it's kind of easy to get a little carried away.
A little.
Yeah, so we were at the Motor City, and I remember Burger buying some books for himself. So he bought a first appearance of John Stewart, which is the second appearance of Guy Gardner. That's Green Lantern 87. And then the big book, Green Lantern 76, which started the whole Bronze Age of comics. It's an iconic Neil Adams cover. He bought those books for himself, and I'm trying to figure out what I want for myself. And I remember we both seen this copy of First Appearance Sinister Six, and I was thinking, how perfect would that be for Burger's collection? I don't remember who proposed the idea, like, hey, I get this, you give me what you got, I give you what I would get.
I got a little clarity on that.
And you threw in an extra book.
Yes.
So it was a Batman 232 signed by Neil Adams, and first appearance Ra's al Ghul, second appearance Talia al Ghul. Really cool cover, signed in a great spot. But you said you had some clarity?
Yeah, so I remember this very clearly. So we had mentioned doing the swap, and at the same time I still hadn't found my own personal con book yet. So one of our local comic shops, I won't say their name per se, but I frequent them often, and they always bring better, for whatever reason, stock to Comic-Con when they used to go. And I went over there. They had the Green Lantern 76 and 87 both at the same booth. And I said, well, I'm definitely buying the 87 because I had planned to give that one to Joe. And I had the Batman 232 lying in wait as kind of more of a surprise type deal. And I was going to keep the Green Lantern 76 for myself. But then Joe's kind of debating between, because like he said, he saw the Sinister Six, which was going for a good price. And at the time, I believe a Morbius, an Amazing Spider-Man 101.
That's right.
Yeah, so we were discussing then. I was like, I don't know if I was just like leading into it a little bit too much or not, but I was just like, look, I have a book for you, and I have another book like lying in wait that I can give you. It's up to you what you want to get based on like what else I'll give you, because he didn't know I had the Green Lantern 76. I had that in a little bag, and I was like, I'll give you everything in this bag plus a book at my house if if you want to up the ante and go with the Spider-Man annual. And he's just like, you know what, that's a deal. And we did it, and I don't think either of us have regrets. Because I got an Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1, the first appearance of the Sinister Six, in a 2-grade slab. And you know what? There's not really that much wrong with it. It's well presenting for a 2. And, I'm very pleased with what I came away with.
I got 3 books that were already on my radar anyways, and it worked out in both of our favors. And just to have a Neil Adams signed book of any kind, let alone a key issue, was pretty huge, because I think it's the only big signed book in my collection, and he's one of my favorite artists. So that was a pretty big year for us. So year 6, we try to slow it down a little bit, but you know how we are, comic book junkies. So year 6, I got a Showcase issue 34, first appearance and origin of Ray Palmer as Adam. Such a cool sci-fi looking cover. Definitely, I'm a big Silver Age DC guy, and at the time, that cover, it represents what my collection's about.
Yeah, and Joe went equally as hard, and, I feel like we matched our energy pretty good on this one, because he got me an Amazing Spider-Man issue 41, the first appearance of the Rhino. So, there's a lot of pickups we made in between our Christmas and July's. We had the whole rest of the year to buy books, and at this point, Joe had helped me flesh out my Fantastic Four collection, and I was diligently working on collecting a lot of early Spider-Man books, and he hit me up with a book that, was on my radar, but I hadn't pulled the trigger on yet, and it's sharp, looks good, and it was a big villain that I needed, because Rhino is classic as they come, and it's a great addition to my box. So I'm really happy with what we did that year. But moving on to year 7, Joe went ahead and got me something for a true American hero, G.I. Joe, issue 21, the first appearance of Storm Shadow, the nemesis of Snake Eyes, and it's also the silent issue. There's no dialogue in the book whatsoever, just completely told by art. And I didn't have any G.I. Joe books, but shouts out my Uncle Ted. He's a big G.I. Joe fan. He's got the tattoos on him and everything, the toys, the whatever. So obviously I've had a long-lasting impression of G.I. Joe growing up, actually, so it was very cool to get a book like that. What'd you come away with?
So for those that listen to the pod, you guys should remember what I got this year. I got a San Diego Comic-Con Comics 2 first black and white appearance of Hellboy. Is that the second ever appearance?
Technically, Hellboy is difficult because he's got the Dime Press 4, which is a cameo on the cover, but he's not really him. This is traditionally his first full appearance. It is in black and white, but it's the first story appearance of the character.
There's a colored issue that comes out afterwards that people argue is his first full appearance, but I think this is the book to have. Very cool copy. He actually got me a slabbed copy off the top of my head. I think it was a 8.5.
Yep.
Presents super well, and we were reading a Hellboy story at the time that he gave me the book, so it fell in line with what we were doing with CBJ, but it also diversified my collection a little bit too with another independent book. So that leads us into year 8, which is 2022, which we haven't told anybody yet.
No, and I think we did really well this year. Especially with the way the market is nowadays. For us to set a budget and to actually be able to get anything anymore was astounding on its own right. But I'll start off by saying what I got Joe is kind of what spurred the budget increase. Because we had our budget set around where it usually is, but then I was looking through the books. I found some cool ones, but I found a book that stood out that was basically the biggest book on his want list. And I was just like, I put a little 50 on top of what we were going to do, and I was like, trust me, it'll be worth it. And he's like, yeah, we could do that. So I'll tell you what I got first. It's an Iron Fist issue 14, the first appearance of Sabretooth. So for those who didn't know, back in the day I had one of these. I eventually flipped it, and I've honestly been kind of missing it ever since, and they've been sneaky getting hotter and hotter over the years. And my lack of X-Men books for one, my lack of Iron Fist books, and just having a nice Marvel key, especially when Marvel keys aren't even affordable anymore, was a pleasant surprise to get something that cool, because he's no slouch. He's a big villain, and I'm pumped. But why don't you let him know what you got, Joe?
That's another one of those books that I don't have quite yet, but I'm definitely going to get for myself one day. considering it's Wolverine's brother. However, I think we may have hit our best year yet per budget, because spot on, this was the next book I was going to buy for myself and couldn't have been more thoughtful. Berger got me a Batman Beyond issue 1, first appearance of Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond. So, huge fan of the animated series. I'm actually rewatching it as we speak. I just finished the Justice League animated series, so I moved on to Batman Beyond next. Big fan of the character, and I was even flirting with the idea of spending upwards of $800 for a copy. So for the fact that I was able to receive one during our comic swap was huge for me. Slab 7.0 CGC, but honestly, I bet if I got that re-slabbed, it would grade a lot higher. I don't know what they were doing that day, but clearly weren't working very hard. So it's not about this, but not only such a great hobby, but it's just kind of cool to see everything you own appreciate.
Yeah, it's a great investment, and it's a fun way to do it. Because like I said before, I mean, typically, at least for us, we're the ones buying ourselves books all the time. It's not too often anymore, especially with, 1, the market, and 2, where we're at collecting, for anybody to know, 1, what we have, 2, what we want, or 3, be able to afford what we want. So it's cool to have somebody else who's knowledgeable on books and then just kind of doing a blind swap each year, because, who doesn't love a little bit of a surprise? But yeah, I mean, that effectively recaps all 8 years of Christmas in July, and trust us, we'll keep doing this as long as we reasonably can. And I mean, we're not telling you to spend more money, but if you can, do it with a friend. It's honestly really fun. It's a good little tradition we got going on. That said, though, let's close the book on Christmas in July for this year, and let's start talking about some of our investments. So let's preface this by saying that not all of these books are necessarily bought as investments per se. I mean, we're collectors first, investors second, I would say, but that doesn't change the fact that these books are worth money and the market does go up and down. So we're going to go ahead and talk about a few of our best timed investments, relative to the market now, back then before it took off. And then on the other side, like our worst timed investments, books that either went down after we bought them or our market value, something of the sort. They haven't moved much or they've gone down. So Joe, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to start off with worst investments or best investments?
Let's do the best investments.
Okay, let me preface this. This isn't the best deals we've gotten. These are like books we've bought just because we wanted them, and then they just so happen to like explode or do the opposite. So we'll start with our best investments. I'll start off with my third best investment, House of Secrets, issue 92, first appearance of Swamp Thing. That was another book I bought in college. I probably paid $300 for it back in maybe 2016, if I had to guess. This one is a bit harder to grade because the bottom staple is rusty, but otherwise it's a very, very clean book. If I was being conservative, I would guess it would be at least a 4.0 because really nothing else is wrong with it, except for that the rust kind of bled through the pages a little bit, but the pages are pretty white. There's no creases or anything else weird with it. So that being said, I know I could get at least $1,000 for that book, so I know I bought it at the right time. How about you, Burger?
Well, let's see. I don't know if I'm going to put them in any particular order because honestly, I have like 2 firm ones and then I have 3 that are all kind of tied in a way. So number 1, I'd say my best investment was my Giant Size X-Men issue 1. So it is a bit lower grade, let's say 2.25-ish area. It's a little faded. It's got a few extra staples added, but it doesn't change the fact that I didn't pay more than like $130 for it. And that book, even in the condition it's in, is worth like at least $1,000 or more because it's just a crazy book that doesn't really show any signs of stopping. I mean, my window to upgrade has come and gone, but I'm still holding out hope that someday I'll get a nicer copy. But $100 for a book that's worth at minimum like 10 times that, it feels pretty good to me. You want to go with your number 2?
Yeah, another book that kind of has that same staying power, Amazing Spider-Man issue 129, the first appearance of the Punisher. I got that book in 2020 and is still the most I've ever paid for one book out of pocket, which was $500 at the time, but it was a slabbed CGC 4.5. I feel like I could feel the ship sailing, so it was like a now or never type deal, and I'm glad I did it because I know I could get 3 times the amount I paid for that book just 2 years later. So definitely a book to hold on to forever. It's kind of iconic with the medium, just like a Giant Size X-Men or a Hulk 181. So for anybody that can afford them, Amazing Spider-Man 129, first appearance of the Punisher.
Yeah, that was a great pickup. I said, well, I didn't say this on this podcast, but I got in at the ground floor, got like a 1.8 for mine. Time has come and gone to upgrade that boy. So I'm just going to chill with what I've got, and you've got a great copy. You've done that with a few different books where you got in at just the right moment with like a nice solid like mid-grade sharp presenting book, and now it's worth like a lot more than you paid for. But to go with my number 2 is also kind of lower grade, Fantastic Four issue 48. It's basically the same situation as Giant Size all over again. I actually got it prior to my Giant Size. I remember trading in a bunch of like Dookie books to some guy out in the city of Berkeley in Michigan, and I don't know, I gave him like a second appearance of Harley Quinn. I gave him like some filler books, and I think my Batman 1 New 52, like Batman 1 from the New 52 and the second Harley Quinn were the best books in the lot. And I don't remember how much exactly, but he gave me more than enough credit relative to what the books were worth at that time. And he had a low grade Fantastic Four issue 48. I've gone back there a couple times and I've gotten some really good deals out of the guy. He doesn't own it anymore. But yeah, I mean, literally, I think I paid $125 after I think it was $275 originally, which was cheap. But I mean, this was a long time ago. And then after like trade-in value, I got like $150 off. So I says $125 for a first appearance of Galactus and the Silver Surfer. I says yes. Like I lived 30 to 40 minutes from there at the time. I drove home and then drove back the same day because I was just like, I need to go take some trade up there, and it was more than worth it. And it's like a pillar of my collection now, so I would do that again, obviously. So pretty pumped on that. So let's round it out. What's your third best investment?
Well, for me, this was my number 1 investment.
Gotcha.
Ever, period. Amazing Spider-Man issue 15, first appearance of Kraven the Hunter. So before I get into it, anything Spider-Man just seems to stay. So if you see anything Amazing Spider-Man, just buy it.
Yeah.
It's the only thing other than maybe Batman that's bulletproof. But this is a book I got maybe early 2017. I got some student loan money back and wanted to use just a little bit of it towards a Spider-Man key issue. And I wanted something early, and it was between this and a Mysterio, which would have also been a really good deal at the time. But I found a CGC 4.5 on the Bay, and it was less than $350. And so for a clean copy of an older Silver Age book like that, I figured like this is going to be just solid deal regardless. And little did I know that the book in that condition now goes for at least $17.50 and is probably the biggest book in my collection when considering condition. So definitely appreciative that I bought in at the right time for Kraven the Hunter, because I probably wouldn't buy one now.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that was honestly the best deal because literally, like, I think the same week I also bought a Kraven the Hunter because I was looking at Spidey books too. Granted, mine's not as sharp as yours, clearly, and you got the better deal, but, I'm glad to have just gotten in at that price point because I had a little less money in my pocket at that point, and I think I paid like $175. But for, the extra $150 or so or whatever, like, you got the way better investment. So props on that. For my number 3, which I'm also just going to probably tie in my honorable mentions to it because I don't have a pinpointed number 3, based on cost or anything. But I kind of have a 3-way tie between Flash 110, the first appearance of Wally West, but that's because I paid, like, once again, like, no more than $150. I'm pretty sure it was less than that. Between that, my Showcase 17, my first Adam Strange, even though it's a 1.8, like, that's still worth a lot more than the $175 I paid for it back then. And my third runner-up is my Crow issue 1. Granted, I paid more for that than honestly any of the other books that I just mentioned, but it's also the sharpest. Like, it's somewhere in the nines. And based on like the most recent like high grade sold, they're going for a pretty penny for a first print, and mine is first print, so I'm pretty pumped on that with that all black cover. So it's one of those three. I don't really know how to quantify which one's the best though, because they've all appreciated so much, I guess. But like my honorable mention as well is my Werewolf by Night 32. It's technically the best investment because I didn't pay for it. It was a gift from Jasmine, my fiance. But, you know, that was literally, 2016 I probably got that? And it ain't nowhere near 2016 prices, especially considering what she paid for it, which had to be less than, $300 at the time. It's like, wish you could do that nowadays. But, it's hard to say what my firm 3 is. I'm only firm with the top 2.
At the time I bought my Punisher, I flirted with the idea of buying one of those for about that $500 price range, and I couldn't have gone wrong either way, but honestly, those Moon Knights are pretty untouchable too, so that would have been a sweet way for me to go, and unfortunately, I missed the boat.
It's okay. This is a nightmare for all of you who don't know the story, but, a time he passed on a Moon Knight at a con and stuff like that, I didn't have money the way, I'm not saying I'm well off, but I didn't have money the way I do now. I was a college student. Passed on a Daredevil for like just over $600. Can't go back in time. You learn lessons the hard way sometimes. But it is what it is.
I think it was at that same con, they had a 5.0 Moon Knight for $500.
Yep.
And
we couldn't do it.
We didn't talk each other up enough that day or something. I don't know what was going on. I would put that on the credit card.
Oh, in hindsight, yeah. I wish I had.
Yeah. But one honorable mention for me before I get into my worst investments, I did get a Riddler at a good time. I did get a Batgirl at the right time. But Edge of Spider-Verse issue 2, first appearance of Spider-Gwen. So I bought this as it came out. So did Juan, so did Berger. All three of us got a copy for $3 or whatever that cover price. But
$4.
I think Juan still has his, but Berger and I traded ours towards other books, probably Silver Age.
I got a Bullseye and gas money out of it.
Probably got like $100 in trade, but a near mint copy of that goes for like $500 plus. So even though I don't care for the book, it would have been worth holding on to. That would have been a good investment. I mean, I went from $3 to $100, but that book still keeps climbing. Again, anything Spider-Man is bulletproof. Hold on to it.
Yeah, cosign.
But top 3 worst investments. So I'll give you my worst investment this time, just to start things off. I got a Batman issue 1, volume 2, beginning of the Court of Owls. So I started collecting the New 52 exactly when it came out. So I had issue 1 of everything that I was collecting, except for some reason my Batman issue 1 was a second print. So I sold it and I had to get like a near mint copy of issue 1 just to complete my run because I had the whole volume. At that time, I loved the series so much that I did find like a near mint copy, and I think I paid about like $125 for it if I remember correctly. So it's still a clean copy. I would be lucky to get half that price if I sold it, or if I went to any comic book shop locally, they'd probably have it for like half that price in a good grade. So that's where I kind of goofed. It's probably worth half of what it was worth. It's still a good book, but not what I paid for it. It's the second volume of Batman, so I thought for sure it'd be sweet to get an issue 1, but the New 52 stopped at the 52nd issue of all of their main series, and so that made it kind of worthless too. So I lost about $50, okay guys? But how about you, Berger?
I'm not trying to say I'm infallible or anything, but I haven't really lost my ass on any investments. So I'm going to try and do some mental gymnastics around this in 3 different ways, I think. I'm going to do my 1 and 2 just because I'm just going to be rambling. So come to think of it, I suppose my ill-time investment was, well, technically it would have been a good time, but when I sold it was a bad time. My Hulk 180. Got it with a stamp, everything complete, didn't look bad at all. Had it for a few months. Then I flipped it for a Mirror Master, which I'm not totally upset because I like my Mirror Master, but I really culled a lot of cool books to get rid of it. And then immediately after is when the jump on Hulk 180 happened. Because for all them years, whatever, Hulk 180 was like the redheaded stepchild of the Hulk books. It was like, it's like it's cool to have, but it doesn't really matter unless it's a 181.
Oh, but you don't have a 181?
No, but that was kind of my rationale. I was like, well, the one that matters is 181. So if I lose 180, I can get another one. It's going to be a while before I get a 181, blah, 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 blah. But literally right after I sold it is now that they've hopped up. So that's that. And then I'm just going to go right into my second one, honestly. It's, now I haven't really lost money on any of these books, but this one stayed pretty stagnant, and it might be a bad investment just based on interest. It's one of the Hellboy books. So I have all 3 of his technical first appearances, but I would say Dime Press 4. It's his first cover appearance, first ever really appearance. It's an Italian fanzine. I think there was 2,000 of them made or something like that. So it is rare, but you don't see prices really go up or down. And where I bought it is about where I'd be able to sell it. So it's not the worst investment, but it's not getting any movement. And this is after they tried to reboot it, which was dog shit. And unless Ron Perlman's old ass comes back and makes a third one, I don't really see it moving anytime soon. But that's probably one of my second worst ones.
That's fair. My second worst investment was Aquaman 35, first appearance of Black Manta, second appearance of Ocean Master. Big things happen in that book, so it's a great book to have. Don't get me wrong. But I bought it right before the movie came out. Also, I was thinking more of it as an investor, not a collector, and that's what got me wrong, so don't do that, guys. But anyways, I didn't realize that there was a faint stamp on it, so that kind of ruins the grade of it. But I paid around $250 to $300 for it, and it can't be worth more than $350 still. So for the copy I have anyways, so kind of felt like a wash, which is a shame considering he was the best part of that movie. It still is a sweet DC villain, but I definitely could have bought that book at a better time. Now, my last one actually is kind of subpar because most of my books have appreciated. Thankfully, I have a lot to be grateful for, but some books that have stayed stagnant. So Man of Steel issues 17 and 18, which is the first appearance of Doomsday. Issue 17 is obviously the cameo. Issue 18 is the first full appearance. I bought really good copies of that, at least 8 and above. Now, issue 18 was a gift from my younger brother Glenn, so shout out Glenn. But I believe we both paid maybe $30 a piece for those books, and they're worth about $30 a piece for that book, and that was 5+ years ago. So it's one of the few books in my collection that haven't appreciated. Now, I will say my All-Star Western 10 first appearance of Jonah Hex hasn't moved much, neither has my Silver Age appearance of Hawkman. So those were investments I could have made at any time, so to speak, but still good books to have. So the reason I put Doomsday on my list is because I didn't lose any money, didn't really gain any money. It's a good book to have, but I don't see that moving anytime soon even, which is unfortunate because it's such a big Superman villain.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great book. It's a classic and a must-have for a Superman fan, but yeah, I mean, it's not
a good investment.
It's not an investment book in any grade, even a 9.8, doesn't matter. It's just cool to have. But yeah, I'm with you because I literally was digging through the bins and I thought about grabbing one too, but I was like, I can get this whenever I want to. And it was about, $20 to $25 for the 18 and $35 to $40 for the 17.
Jubilee from X-Men is like that too. There's a few books that are considered key issues that just don't appreciate.
It's the mid to late 90s, brother. There's too many of them for that to matter.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just cap it off with one of my last ones. Not saying it's a bad investment, but it's the uncertainty of the investment. It's not even about the investment for me. Weekly Shonen Jump 1 from 1987. The only reason this is making the list, I can give a fuck less if I lose my ass on it, I guess, because I enjoyed the series and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know what the hell the market is. I mean, how is somebody over here really supposed to know what a non-Japanese person literally supposed to know what those are supposed to be going for? There's no real data to support what it's worth other than it is scarce. Because those things are built with the cheapest paper imaginable and they're the size of a fucking phone book. So it's just there's no way to know what it's worth. So I guess that one's a more of a wait and see. But I paid a good amount, and I don't know how much more it's going to rise, but I don't know that it's going to tank either. So, beats the hell out of me. If anybody knows about value on that type of stuff, please reach out, enlighten us, or enlighten me. But that's just kind of, I guess it's an honorable mention because I just dipped my toe into something I know nothing about, but I was like, I must have it.
Way to diversify the portfolio.
It is. I mean, it all started with the Dime Press 4, which was also a shaky investment, as we already mentioned. It's once you start getting out the comic format books, you start losing me. But I was like, that's cool, so I want it.
Hey, we're fans first, obviously. We make our own mistakes based off of our interests, so it's none of anybody's business but our own. But just to let you know, we've made a lot of money on these books. So keep investing. It's a lot of fun. We'll hit you with the same episode next year at this time. It's all about a mind state, so we're having fun. I hope you guys are too. Hit them with what we're going to do next episode, Burger.
Yeah, the fun's going to keep on rolling next time around. We're going to travel down into Gotham, and we're going to take a look at the first year of Batman. That's right, Batman Year One, the classic tale. So, I mean, if you haven't already read it, it's basically required reading for a Batman fan. So make sure to read up before you listen to the episode if you want to. I mean, otherwise we're going to recap and review it for you because that's what we do. So yeah, Batman Year One. Catch you later.